overall, Arsenal have had a very good season this year, being top of the Premier League and the Champions League, and although not every result has been perfect, overall the team has really grown since last season. Now in this video, we're going to talk about how the evolution of tactics around the PSG setup from last year has been used by Arteta this season, and how Arsenal are actually adapting and evolving that to fit their style, which is making them a better team. So let's get into it. Now clicking on this video, you might be a little bit confused at why I'm drawing conclusions from PSG's last season's team to Arsenal's team this season. Now I will say off the bat, there's a few things that are different in the two teams, and Arsenal have definitely adapted things to work a lot better for themselves, but I definitely think there is still a lot of similarities between the two teams. Now speaking of PSG, obviously last season when they came to the Emirates in the league stage phase, they got actually destroyed. Arsenal's rotations in midfield were too good for PSG on that day, and while Dembele didn't play for disciplinary reasons and there was a few injuries in their squad, it was quite clear that at the time Luis Enrique was a little bit behind the current tactics in terms of rotations of midfielders and wing backs and how teams attack, which we really got to them on that day. Now later on, when Arsenal obviously played PSG in the semi-final, albeit I think the game was a lot closer than the scoreline suggests, played very well and had a lot more of a grasp of the game. They were able to man-to-man press Arsenal very well and keep up with them rotations, and then be able to do them sort of rotations themselves in attacking areas, and also be incredibly aggressive off the ball, which is something that obviously Arteta and Arsenal have done quite a lot over their time. Now, a lot of the different systems that PSG used last year, I want to talk about the Champions League final because I think it's the best way of kind of gauging the team at their best of their abilities and how Arsenal have kind of copied that in ways you would not expect. Now, number one, the biggest way that I think the similarities between the two teams is how intent of a pressing and off-the-ball team they are. Now, Arsenal are a man-to-man pressing team, especially far up the pitch when the goalkeeper has the ball and they're trying to make sure that the team can't pass out very easily. But obviously, if they need to sit in a deeper block, if a team's got a lot of the possession, are kind of controlling the game, which doesn't happen a lot but happens sometimes, Arsenal will do a much more zonal approach, keeping compact, keeping in the middle and not really spreading out until Odegaard or Marino is the real trigger and they go and jump and then everyone jumps at the same time. That's kind of how Arsenal defend broadly. Now PSG do that a little bit, but mostly they are this aggressive man-to-man team. Last season, Dembele, and one of the big reasons he won the Ballon d'Or was because of how effective he was off the ball of winning the ball back. Now in the Champions League final, there was many times where the goalkeeper for Inter Milan had the ball and Dembele not only would press the goalkeeper intensely hard, but he'd go right up to the centre back and then press him hard and win the ball back, or at least put Inter under a lot of pressure where they have to kick the ball long and then they win it from them first and second duels. Now I will say that I think Arsenal want to do this a lot with their striker, but Arsenal don't have one guy pressed by himself. They don't feel like that's enough control. They like having a big line in the front, and we have seen Arsenal do a lot of it with two players. Marino or anyone in striker, Woklz if that would be, are the guy that kind of randomly will press and be the trigger to go forward, and then off that the players around them will play. You have Eze on the right side or Odegaard, and they will kind of make sure that the teams push the ball down their right side so Arsenal can press up and get their man-to-man approach up, forcing teams to get long and then winning the headers in the centre and on the wide areas, which Arsenal's defence is incredibly good at doing. Now obviously there's been adaptations to this. Odegaard has been a real controller when he plays and he's the guy that really presses out, but obviously he hasn't played too much, so Eze has had to kind of come into that role with Marino a lot of the time, and I would say Marino is a much more better engager at being that initial press. If Woklz is there and Odegaard is there, you would rather Odegaard do it and force teams to go down the left side maybe more than the right. There's all these different adaptations with how the pressing works, and I think the general idea is the same. Now that's something Arsenal have done for years now, and I actually think somewhat of PSG's system has kind of broadly come from that. Now I think the biggest change though, however, is how Arsenal's midfield works this season compared to last season and how it kind of is in that PSG mould. Now a lot of the times on the podcast with Forder, I've been talking about Arsenal being the sort of light version of this PSG midfield. PSG's midfield was very highly touted last season, obviously having João Neves, Vitinha and Fabian Ruiz, and all of these players are not natural sixes, they're not natural 10s. They're all 8s in their own different ways, while some of them might be a little bit more attacking than others, such as Fabian Ruiz might be a more of attacking player than someone like Neves, just for instance. But the best thing that all these three did is they controlled the game in different ways. A lot of the time, they could play this sort of vertical way where they're all diagonal from each other. Now, the great thing about doing this is that they could sit on different lines of the pitch. How Arsenal attack, for instance, they have 4 or 5 different lines, and every single player might go on them lines in different moments. There might be be someone like Eze who drops deeper on from the second line to the third line, but that is something that PSG do a lot as well, and they always want to keep players on these lines no matter what player it is and the rotations fresh, which I think works really well. But some of the ways that works is because the fluidity of their rotations really help. For instance, like we were talking about, the sort of line approach of when one player goes onto the third line, someone knows they need to drop down to the second line. That is the same with PSG. Their fullbacks do it. If their fullbacks push up, being Hakimi and Mendes, then some of the central midfielders know they have to drop deeper and go on a deeper line, or if they want to give more pressure, they go up a line and go into that attacking phase to help. And this also happens with different movements on the pitch. Something that Arsenal are really good at doing this season, I think, in games especially against 5-backs and especially against like low blocks, which has been a big evident thing, is making sure that they overload the right or left side, the wing positions, getting a lot of players there and having 2 players on an island the other side, being able to switch it quickly and them having the space to quickly have a shot in. Now, Arsenal have done this quite a lot this season with not only the left winger coming over to the right side, not only one of the right backs going to the left side, or Calafiori coming to the right side as well, where they've been able to drag midfielders from the other team into these sort of wide positions and then quickly switch the ball in the middle. It's how we scored our second goal against Tottenham. Now, this is eerily similar to exactly what PSG did in the Champions League final just 6 months ago. They would get a lot of their players to go down the right-hand side, whether that be more central midfielders, whether that be the wing-back and the winger, but they would get 4 or 5 players that played this sort of square or even bigger triangle down these sides, and they would basically work with the players around them, do little interchanges, bait players towards them, bait midfielders to come over, and sort of have that space in the middle, and also have 2 players on an island the other side, waiting for that quick switch, waiting for that quick pass across, where instantly they know they're going to get a 1v1 or a 2v2 to create something in a short moment, and with that space, that's exactly what you want. Now, this is not just the midfielders, this is also the adaptation of the wing backs and the fullbacks, whatever you want to call them, with Calafiori coming down to overload these sides, with Trossard sometimes coming down from the left-hand side to overload this right. It happens all the time with these players. And then the interesting part about all of this is that this only really works when you have 3 midfielders that have some intent of going forward. Now, I know we haven't seen it a huge amount this season because of the Odegaard injuries, but I think the perfect Arsenal midfield that at least Arteta wants to play right now is Rice, Zubimendi and Odegaard. I know Eze has played there a lot, but I would still argue Eze hasn't played as a natural 10 in some games. He has dropped deeper a lot of the time and played off other players. And what we're doing here is keeping up that fluid movements, that fluid rotations always happening. If Eze or Odegaard drops deeper onto that 3rd line or 4th line of the attack, then straight away Zubimendi or Rice have to go into the attack and 3rd to create. And I will actually say, if you look at the average positions and heat map of all of our midfielders this season, Eze, Odegaard, Zubimendi, Rice, there is a clear intention of like Eze is the attacking one, he's a little bit further forward, Rice maybe is a little bit more of this attacking left side threat, but Zubimendi is all over the pitch as well, and he goes into the box a lot. And when Zubimendi was signed, a lot of people thought he was going to be this sort of Thomas Partey replacement. He was just going to be a DM, he was going to sweep up, be a better player on the ball, and at least be a lot more insertive of playing central passes, which was a big thing, reason why we bought him. But a lot of people didn't really think that he was going to be this like attacking player, and that is quite the opposite. I think against Club Brugge, you really saw that Zubimendi has become an 8 player in this midfield, because he's not playing the same role as Partey. He's a guy that's overlapping, underlapping down the left-hand side. He's a guy that's running in the box in some games and getting into them efforts. I mean, even for Spain, he does the same thing. He picks up space and finds it, and as long as he has people covering for him, it works really well. I think Rice and Zubimendi at the moment are that perfect duo for Arsenal, because not only are they both 8s, as well as Odegaard as being an 8 as well, I think the biggest part about it is that Rice can cover so much ground that he covers for them gaps that Zubimendi might leave, and wants to have that freedom to go forward. And we've seen how effective Zubimendi can be inside the box, creating chances, having good shots, scoring good goals, but also setting up teammates and being that sort of efficient passer from outside the box. And Arsenal having this sort of fluid rotation of 3 8s in the midfield, having someone go up at different times, is just hard to track. For a man-to-man approach against you, they're not always going to be able to follow the player, so it makes it a lot better in that way. And although Arsenal, I would say, haven't necessarily done this too much yet, and this may be me jumping the gun a bit, I also see some similarities between the switches of the wingers and the forwards, which kind of give me that sort of PSG vibe as well. Now, one of the reasons why PSG worked so well last year was Ousmane Dembele could basically basically rotate with anyone, play in any position in the attacking third, and he's broadly going to be good. On the wing, that's where he comes from. In attacking midfield, it's basically the same. He's playing deeper, has to carry it. He's a very good carrier, and it worked really well. Now, one of the things that they actually did quite a lot last season is move him onto the left-hand side or the right and switch him with one of the wingers. Now, this allowed the wingers to get into their more central areas if they're not quite getting the space out there, and also it kind of confuses the man-to-man marker. Is the fullback going to go with him? Probably not. He's going to stay there, and in some moments where a bit of confusion like that can happen, you can definitely get space and things can happen. Now, we've always been asking for Arsenal to do more rotations with their wingers. I think slowly as the season has gone on, I think with no injuries happening, there would have been more change in this, but I think Arsenal have started to do that. Saka's come down the left a lot more in the last 5 to 6 games, I would say, and there's definitely been an incentive this season to allow him to go down there to have shots and switch with players. When he plays with Eze and Madueke, he can switch on the other side, but also we saw it with the Jesus, which we spoke about in yesterday's video. Jesus playing, he's basically playing on this left-hand side and allowing Martinelli to go into the middle to be that striker. They're switching in the moment, and I think it's better at the both of their abilities as a dribbler out wide and as a pace player can get into the box up front. And although there's clear different stylistic things between PSG and Arsenal, I think how Calafiori plays and Mendes plays are both attacking fullbacks, but I think they're used in different ways. I think how the defenders are used and how Arsenal do sit off a bit, a lot more than I'd say probably PSG do in certain aspects, I think it's the same. And although Arsenal at the moment may have this sort of striker that's really good at pressing, the sort of connector guy like I would kind of assume Dembele is as well. Obviously Dembele's still a guy that gets into the box and gets shots and gets goals. I think obviously Gyökeres is not that type of striker. He's a normal number 9, so if you want to play that more direct style, you go for Gyökeres. Mourinho isn't necessarily like that. He's more of like a guy in the box. It is more of that Gabriel Jesus, Kai Havertz type, which I think would be where we would go into, but they haven't been fit, so we just haven't really been able to see it, which is hard to kind of come to a conclusion if we're going to use our striker in the same way. Now, overall, let me know in the comments what you guys think about this sort of system and you think about how Arsenal are playing, and thank you guys for watching. If you want to watch my video at Gabriel Jesus yesterday and his comeback, please go and watch that, and I will see you in the next one.